On this week's episode of Devil's Trap Podcast, little psycho goat people are hopping through the forest, scooping up the Winchesters.
And bopping him on the head. And that's why Dean Winchester has a TBI. Let's do this. Welcome to this week's episode of Devil's Trap Podcast. I'm Diana.
And I'm Liz.
And we are back after a short break with Season 12, Episode 18, The Memory Remains. Apparently my memory does not.
No, nobody's memory is remaining where it should be.
Yeah, so before we jump into the episode, why do we take a week off, Liz?
Oh, so we could just be lazy and not do things. You know, we all had mental breakdowns, so we needed time off. Or I fled the country. Any of these things may be true.
Yeah.
I went to go do some, I don't know, training. I don't know what to call it. I had a retreat in Mexico where I spent 5 hours a day exercising for fun. Because that's the new vacation these days, is you go off and you go be healthy. Nobody was drinking or doing other things. All I was doing was eating healthy and working out. 50 is the new 30 or whatever. Yeah. So it was exciting. And I did get to release some turtles. So I'm a hero. I know that I think it's probably the highlight of my trip. We got to save turtles that hatched on a beach and go release them into the ocean. And I had to fight seagulls to make sure they lived. Seagulls are nasty little creatures. They kept trying to eat the turtles. I'm like, no, you can't have the baby turtles. Yeah. So hopefully one day, like, I'll go back there and one of those turtles will swim back and they'll be like, you saved me. And I'll be like, I know. And we'll have a moment, and then she'll make new turtles, and it'll be a thing. So what about you? Nice. What were you doing?
Well, I finished up my birthday week celebrations. I did all kinds of things, which were not heavy party related, but I had the dinners and the drinks and the massage and what else? And the Botox and the things like that. And then I went and then we got a puppy.
Very exciting.
Yay. So we got a puppy, and he is a sweet little baby, and he is missing one of his eyes because he had to have it surgically removed due to an infection. But he is going to be, he's going to be Albus's little brother. That's all that matters, because Albus needed a dog.
That's
so I got my dog a dog. Yeah.
Yeah, every dog needs a dog.
Yeah. But yeah.
So that's what's been going on in our lives. In the lives of Jensen Ackles and the rest of the cast, there have been nothing too exciting. Although there's been more talk about more seasons of Bot Rising. Ackles has been promoting that a bit. So that's about all that's really been going on, unless you've seen anything else.
That's the main thing.
All right. So this episode we'll go. Yeah. So this episode will go to The Memory Remains, which is a reference to a Metallica song that's on the Load album. And this episode first came out April 3rd, 2017. It was directed by Phil. I'm not going to pronounce your last name anymore. And this season he directed episode 8, Lotus. And last season he did Alpha and Omega, which was episode 23, and episode 18, Helps Angels. This is written by John Bring, who only has one other writing credit on Supernatural, and that was in season 11 for episode 15's Beyond the Mat with Andrew Dabb. He got a co-writing credit for that, but he was a writing assistant and other work. And we go to our recap, where we see that Mary is drawn to Danger, and ew, speaking of Danger, she banged Ketch. Ooh, disgusting. Cops reminded me of that. Then Dr. Hess is a cunt. And then Ketch killed Mick. Oh my God. And then Dr. Hess wants to exterminate all the hunters, especially the brother Winchesters. And that's where we're going to start.
Yeehaw. And so we kick off in Tomahawk, Wisconsin with some young people. You don't really know if they're teenagers or adults here, but
kids. They're partying they're youngins and they're partying at a gunfire.
We find out they have full-time jobs. So borderline.
It still doesn't mean they're old enough to be drinking beer.
No, it doesn't. It's like, okay, this is awkward. I'm gonna fucking jet. And the other one's like, I'm gonna stay and watch like a creeper.
Gross.
Anyways, so yeah, so the one leaves, and this is Jared, we find out, and Darren is the one that's staying. Leaves, and we see something's clearly watching him in the woods because duh, that's what happens. And we see whatever's watching him in the woods is carrying this fucking mallet. Like what is happening? Anyways, so and Jared sees a backpack leaned up against a tree with a glow stick tied to it, and it is full of cash, which is quite enticing. I agree, Jared. But it definitely gets him chained to a tree, and then he's calling out for his friends. Darren finally hears him.
He's not just chained to a tree. He's like barbed wired to a tree.
Yeah, it's creepy. Yeah, it's like trapped. It's creepy. But Darren finally hears him, and just as Darren starts running to go find him, he sees a goat man with a mallet bop Jared on the head.
Little bunny foo-foo bopping through the forest, scooping up Jared's and bopping them on the heads. So exactly. Darren runs away, and we cut from there to the bunker where Dean is still getting Cass's voicemail, and he's still pleading for backup. And Sam's just like, well, let's find him, and Dean's like, you think I haven't been trying? His location's turned off, and there's not any reports of guys in trench coats I can find. But I do have this gun underneath my table, which I can just take out and start cleaning.
Yes. And Sam's like giving him the pep talk that Cass is going to be fine. But by the way, I stayed up all night reading about demons.
Because they have all the books on demons, and that's so great. I'm so jealous.
Well, they're trying to get more intel on Dagon, and there's just not that much out there that's useful because apparently the Princes of Hell were a little, standoffish.
They didn't want people to know about them, so they were probably just trying to stay off the books, and they didn't have a lot of history recapped on them. But what Sam does have is email, and he gets mail, and it's from Mick about a case, which is weird because as we just said in the recap, Catch fucking shot Mick. Mm-hmm. But here's Mick sending an email anyhow.
They don't know this. They don't know that Mick is dead. So, he has a case about Jared who has disappeared, and there's no witnesses, no body. And that's weird. Apparently, one person has been missing from this town every year from 1898 to 1997, and then it stopped until now.
Which is just a very strange thing to have happen in a town. I mean, maybe it was like, how do you figure out that it was the same day every year when someone went missing, right? And is it that unusual for one person to go missing? I don't know. But Dean's just like, there's only one way to find out. And he's playing pew pew with the Colt, which I don't feel like is something you play pew pew with. But we go from there to a computer at the BMOLs, where Catch is reading that email that was supposedly from Mick. And he says, it's time. While all these armored tactical dudes are in the background packing gear. So what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. Because Sam and Dean are driving to Tomahawk. And they meet the Sheriff Bishop.
And fun fact about Tomahawk, Wisconsin. It is home to Pickles, the drummer for Deathlock, for Metalocalypse.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't watch that. I'm aware of the show. I just didn't watch it.
How did you not watch Metalocalypse?
Because there's too much to watch out there. You can't watch all the shows.
Anyway, so that's Tomahawk, Wisconsin, where we have the sheriff who is taxidermizing, which is the word my computer wanted me to write. Taxidermizing. I was saying he was taxidermying, which I thought was a better word, but my computer says I should say taxidermizing a beaver. Whatever computer, I think I was right. So he's taxidermying a beaver, and he wants to know why the feds are interested in Jared.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, they were in basically this spot that's like the makeout spot. And he's like, I'm sure when he left, we know he left and he never made it home, but we think, he could have got, but I think he bailed. I think got. But the sheriff's convinced that he bailed because he had a rough time. He had a rough life. His mom left a few years ago, and before that, he alludes to his dad abusing him. And they're like, well, if you knew, why didn't you do anything? And he's like, well, it's not that easy to take a child from their parents. But either way, his dad had a stroke a few years ago, and in a cruel twist of fate, Jared is the one that has to take care.
So yeah, he's like, I can see why he would just like take off. So, and his friends weren't saying anything that were worth repeating, but Sam and Dean want to find them anyways. So we go to Bill Hook Meat's Meat Packing Factory. I don't know why I have meats all that much, but so Bill Hook Meat's Meat Packing Factory, where Darren is outside smoking some weed, and I don't blame him because his job looks pretty horrible. And he thinks he's busted when Agent Stark and Martell come up, and this is a reference to two of the dynasties in George R. Martin's Game of Thrones, which is a weird way for this to turn, but that's where we turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But Dean's a cool cop. He's like, oh no, here it's cool. It's medicinal purposes, right?
As of 2026, marijuana is not legal in Wisconsin for recreational or medicinal purposes at the state level, although some cities have decriminalized small amounts.
There we go.
Just in case you're wondering about the weed status in Wisconsin.
Yeah, like how cool is Dean being, or is it totally made up? Yeah. And they're like, hey, Jared, hey, Darren, tell us about Jared. And Darren's like, oh, the sheriff doesn't believe me. We have history. And because basically we figure out the sheriff blames, he's a stoner kid that gets blamed for everything.
But then he's going to flash back to what happens. And he says the monster was Black Bill. And it's some kind of weird twist on Black Phillip, but it's Black Bill instead. And we go to a restaurant. And Sam is telling Dean that Black Bill is an urban legend that dates back to more than 100 years. But Dean's not paying attention because the waitress is pretty.
Sam fills us in about this thing that's not the Jersey Devil, but similar, with the head of a goat. Dean makes a goat noise at him, which is super awkward and hilarious in the diner. And they agree that Darren must have been, what seemed way too freaked out to be lying about this. And Sam's like, well, there is like hybrid, animal-human hybrid lore. And Dean's like, yeah, don't wait up for me. And he's going to go make eyes at the waitress and just want Sam to figure out how to kill whatever it is, because he's got the Colt anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
And I feel like carrying the Colt around is overkill. It seems like a strange thing to be carrying. Okay. I would at least, I don't know. I mean, I know it's a super important weapon and I don't want to leave it places, but it doesn't also seem like your daily carry.
No, it seems like a special occasion carry. Definitely. So we go to Darren at work, where Pete, his supervisor, startles him in the walk-in freezer, which is really rude because that's an easy place to get the shit scared out of you. But apparently Darren clocked in late again and brings up Jared and that, like, how he knows how sad that was. He was everybody's friend. And Darren's like, you didn't even give a shit about him. He's like, no, that's not true. But either way, it's not an excuse to blow off work, and you should lay off the reefer. We've got a big day tomorrow. So
he leaves to go home, and it's snowing. And nope, Wisconsin, nope. And in his rearview mirror is the goat with the sledgehammer, and he drags Darren out of his car. No, not Darren.
And bops him on the head.
And he gets bopped on the head. And then we go back to our cafe where Dean is coming in with the waitress.
The next morning. And Sam is there, gets off the phone, and Dean had an awesome night and steals Sam's healthy breakfast and then bitches about it. You can't do that. You can't take it and bitch about it. Pick one.
No,
but anyways.
You can't.
But Sam's like, hey, I think I figured out what this is. It's a satyr. It's half man, half goat from Greek mythology. And Dean's like, he's adorable. He plays the flute. And Sam's like, that's Pan. But either way,
and satyrs. were creatures
Satyrs,
of
sorry.
yeah, it's okay. They were creatures of uncontrollable lust who led people to the woods for massive orgies and then a quote like feast upon the flesh of their victims until their belly was full to bursting with their moist, slippery meat. And Dean is not really a fan of the moist, slippery meat, but who isn't, right?
So they're like, hey, we should ask Darren about this, but apparently he never made it home from work yesterday. Ruh-roh. So they're going to go back to the plant, ask for Darren, who no-showed for work. And it's the big day. Pete, make sure they know it's the big day. The health inspector's here. And it's not that anything's dirty. It's just their equipment's old. And so they don't want to get shut down. We find out that this is Sheriff Bishop's family operation. Like he's one of the owners, or he's the owner of it. So he's in the office trying to sweet talk the inspector. And yeah, so they're going to go meet up and talk to him. And they are basically saying that, like, hey, it's super sus that, witness for someone that went missing just, happened to also go missing. That's weird, right? And the sheriff is like, wait, I haven't even heard about Darren. What are you talking about? And Sam's like, I don't know. Why don't you tell us about Black Bill?
Yeah, and the sheriff just is explaining that that's just a local boogeyman, right? And the missing people, he just explains them away as people who got bored working at the plant and moved on. And that kid, he was probably drunk or high or both, and Darren's probably sleeping one off somewhere.
Darren's in the meat freezer. That's where we've ended up. And the outside is the portion that is blocked off with a sign that says coolant leak, do not enter. And Sam and Dean are just strolling on by and talking about how sus this whole thing is. And Darren finds Jared dead in the meat locker and then sees the shadow of Black Bill. No. So we've got Sam and Dean are leaving the meat packing plant, and Darren and dead Jared are in the meat freezer with Black Bill. So back at the diner, Sam sees Dean eating a burger and is like, does this not bother you? We just watched all this meat processing happen. And Dean's like, unconcerned. I'm not worried about it. So he's like, I know where my meat comes from. So he has cross-referenced the missing persons for the last 100 years with the plant employees. And apparently all of them align. How? I know.
Did you what the fuck is an employee roster? Like, do they have a business? Like, did you go to their archives? And even in their archives, is that something that they have? Like, I don't understand how you got this. So maybe Black Bill is connected to them, or they've decided that it's possible that they run an evil petting zoo on the side, which I would like that to be my side gig.
So we now know that the Bishops and their family in this plant basically founded and funded the city. They owned it all until a few years ago, but Sheriff started selling things off, except for the meatpacking plant and the family estate, which Dean calls the Addams family house, which isn't fair because this house is cool and old and creepy, but looks nothing like the Addams family house.
It does not.
So, and Sam and Dean go to check out the creepy house. And then we see Ketch and all of his minions from the British Men of Letters at the bunker. They break in. Well, I guess they don't break in because they have a key, but they go in, and apparently he tells them that Dr. Hess wants to know everything about the Winchesters. How does Sam get his hair so shiny? How many ratty flannels does Dean own? And they want to find the Colt. And don't the British Men of Letters already know about them at this point? Is this really necessary? No. And we'll get to I get kind of confused about why they're there. We'll get to that, I guess, when we come back to them. But so we go from there to the creepy house, and Baby pulls up, and they think it just looks empty, so they're just going to break in, because that's what we do. And we go in, and Sam's going to find a locked door, which, of course, is going to lead down to a basement. And we're going to open it up and go down with our flashlights, because that's not creepy to them. But that's fine. And Dean just opens up the door and goes, "Go, dude." So ridiculous. Well, while they're doing this, the sheriff pulls up. I would point out, too, this house does not appear occupied. Not as it's just a creepy house. It's an unoccupied one because it's got like sheets over the furniture and things like that. It's not like, it's not like the family's living there. So the sheriff pulls up while they're in the basement and they find the murder room.
Yeah, it's like shackles and like cleavers and just other tools of murder. I just called them tools of murder. And then the sheriff comes in and he takes the keys to somewhere like out of a book. And I was just watching the new like Catch Me If You Can, like the magic thing, like while I was on a plane. So my brain's kind of in magic land still. And I was like, oh, is this like a magic trick? Why are these keys in this book? Because I don't know why the keys were in the book.
Well, I thought the book was cool.
The book is cool, but I just don't know why. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
It's unnecessary.
It's unnecessary. But he notices that the door to the basement is open and unlocked. And then Dean cocks the Colt at him. But again, this seems like an overuse of the Colt. Wouldn't your regular gun
But he also
just
gets to take his pistol with him. Yeah. Yes, a regular gun would have worked just fine. All he needed to do was disarm the sheriff, which he does, and encourages him to talk. But it also seems like a very inefficient pistol to use, which we can discuss, pistol. Yeah. That's a different thing. So, all right. So they want to know, they want the sheriff to tell him what's going on. And he's like, you won't believe me. It's family secret. Ugh. And then he's like, the Black Bill is not real. He's us. So he's the Bishop family legacy. And that's how the Black Bill thing came about.
Right. So the goat dude was just a dude, but the monster was Moloch, and that's the god of sacrifice. And he says his people way back, they bound up this Moloch and locked him away in the basement, and they starved him and then made him so hungry he'd do anything for blood, which again seems unnecessary. It seems like Moloch didn't need to be hungry. Like why are you starving him? But they would force him to use his power to make them rich.
And we're back.
All right. So if you are listening to this in audio, you don't know why we're saying that. If you're watching this on video, and that means you're one of the 2 people on our YouTube who do that, so way to go. You'll see that we're wearing different clothes because the internet's not being our friend. And I think it's because of lore. I have a strong feeling. So we are back and it's time for lore. And where we were in the episode, they were just talking about Moloch, the god of sacrifice. And if you go to the main source of truth on the internet today, which is Wikipedia, you will find that Moloch or Molech appears in the Bible. It is often used to name a Canaanite god to whom children were sacrificed. Or more recently, scholars have speculated the word actually is like the verb, like the act of sacrifice, right? Like you Moloch something. There have been, though, for a while, pop culture depictions, right? So we have, going back to Fritz Lang's Metropolis, Sergio Leone's The Colossus of Rhodes, the more modern Stargate SG-1, also a demon who lives in the internet and talks people into doing things in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I realize now that Moloch the demon was AI, and Buffy correctly predicted this part of the future.
Ew.
Nice. So there is another Moloch association, however, and that is a conspiracy theory in which an owl named Moloch is annually sacrificed children to by a group of world leaders while they decide the fate of the world at a place called Bohemian Grove in Northern California. Have you ever heard of Bohemian Grove?
I think so.
I think you probably have. You've probably seen it at least on a tabloid, but it's true. At least it's partially true. Which part? I don't know. We're going to go down through the secrets of Bohemian Grove. So, Bohemian Club is a California-based men-only club that once a year gathers in the woods of Monte Rio, California, for a 2.5-week-long retreat called Bohemian Grove. And it's supposed to be very secretive, although there have been infiltrators and leaks throughout the years, including the time in 2000 when a young Alex Jones snuck in. Alex Jones was never young, and he snuck in and he filmed the ritual sacrifice, and it was a really big thing. So, but the first time these guys got together in the woods was back in 1878. So they've been getting together in these woods for a while. They purchased this current site in 1899, and it covers 2,700 acres. And that campsite includes a Grove stage, which is an amphitheater, which seats about 2,000 people. There is a field circle, which is another amphitheater that's for musical performances and seasonal events. There's a campfire circle, which is what it sounds like. There is a museum stage, which is another outdoor venue for lectures and small performances. There's the dining circle that seats about 1,500 diners. There's a clubhouse that was designed by Bernard Maybeck and completed in 1904. And then, of course, there is the Owl Shrine and the lake, which is an artificial lake, which is used for concerts, talks, and the cremation of care ceremony, which we'll talk more about. There's also a commissary, an artist studio, infirmary, and a firehouse. There are owl shuttles, which are open air trucks with seatings for about 20 people that drive up and down the camp because it takes about a mile to get from the entrance to the back of the camp. When they're not in use for a Bohemian Grove, the members can use it for whatever, like that time in 1942 when the Manhattan Project was planned there. That's not a conspiracy theory, that really happened. So, members. Who are the members? The Bohemian Club itself has about 2,600 members currently. Originally, it was a creative elite in San Francisco, but it grew to encompass businessmen and politicians. A few of the people alleged to have attended Bohemian Grove, either as members or guests, include Jack London, every Republican president from Hoover to George W. Bush, Donald Rumsfeld, Henry Kissinger, the board members of top military contractors like Halliburton, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and the Carlyle Group, the Rockefellers, the Morgans, Jimmy Buffett, Warren Buffett, Karl Rove, John Ashcroft, Clint Eastwood, Rush Limbaugh, Elon Musk, Conan O'Brien, Michael Bloomberg, and, to really blow your mind, Guy Fieri. So Bohemian Grove also shows up in the Epstein files. According to a 2009 Vanity Fair article, it costs $25,000 to join, plus annual dues of $5,000 every year. And obviously what annually means. So I have not seen anything about a price increase, but that was from 2009. So it's possible that it could have gone up. In 1999, there was a 15-year-long waiting list. But I think it is still that long to get in. All applicants, though, must be 21 years of age, and they do give a special preference for younger men because they tend to they are aging, so they want some young blood in there. Membership is by invitation only, and a new member has to be nominated by at least 2 prior members. Then the prospect fills out a membership form, and then they have to name 5 people in the club they know well. Then they give that to their sponsor. Then their sponsor has to put in all of their skills and talents and then vouch with another 3 people for them. Then they have a second sponsor that has to do that. Then the prospect has to meet with 11 members of the club's committee. So they have to go through all these steps to get in. Although if you're rich or famous enough, some of these steps can be skipped. Although being famous is not an automatic in. Charlie Chaplin was denied membership, although he was a guest, likely because of his communist ties. Also denied was the cowboy Will Rogers, even though he performed on stage for them. And there is a rumor a recent Republican president was once denied membership. So there are different categories of membership, including regular, non-resident. There's a regular professionals category that has actors, authors, composers, and artists in it, and that's about 100 men. You can join the old guard if you've been a member for over 40 years. And there's also sometimes honorary members and inactives. There have been female honorary members, but never no woman has ever been a member. All right, so daily life at the Grove. There are valets to oversee operations at the camps. Service staff can include female workers whose presence is limited to daytime hours in central areas. Male workers can live on site in camps or service areas. The women's jobs are also the lower paying jobs, and there is a literal line on the ground where women employees are supposed to stop. Employees are not allowed to take any leftover food from the tables. Employees are, however, served breakfast and dinner before the guest service, but it's not the same food. And employees have to wear ID at all times. The valet's mornings start off bringing gin fizzes to campers starting at 7 a.m. Breakfast at the dining circle runs from 7 to 11, and you can order from a menu that has everything from trout to omelet, or you can just say whatever the fuck you want because you're rich and they'll just make it for you. There are also platters of ham, bacon, sausage, pastries, and fruit. After breakfast, there are activities like trap and skeet shooting. There are also scheduled museum talks, which traditionally are about nature, but they can vary. According to Mike Hansen, who broke in with Alex Jones, he said military and space topics make up about 10% of the total number of museum talks. Business, technology, and biology constitute another 40%. Topics have included nuclear disaster, population growth, smart weapons, and the aftermath of Desert Storm in the Gulf. Bangers. So obviously, these talks are given by a lake. And over years, people like Dwight D. Eisenhower, Herbert Hoover, Neil Armstrong have given them. Nixon used that as a place that he would test his speeches out. Some of the highlights, I think, include in 1981, Caspar Weinberger, who was the Secretary of Defense for the Reagan administration, gave one called Rearming America. I just want to know what these were. These all sound fascinating. 86, Alex Haley, the author of Roots, gave one called Why Am I Here? Also that year, William H. Webster, who was the director of the FBI, gave a talk called Spies and Terrorists, Confronting the Enemy Within. In 1997, this is only if you're a nerd, Scalia gave a chat on church, state, and the Constitution, and oh boy, do I want to know what that said. In 2003, Professor Richard Mueller gave a lakeside talk called Military Secrets of the Ocean, Atmosphere, and UFOs, where I bet everyone got filled in on what the aliens were doing, and we just don't get to know. Yeah, so this guy, Shane Keane, listed a whole bunch of talks from 2006, and I thought some of these were really interesting. One was from this guy named Bernie Tershi, who is a research biologist at the Institute of Marine Sciences, UC Santa Cruz, gave a talk, Island Conservation with Guns, Traps, and Poison. Jack Valenti, who was then the president of the Motion Pictures Association of America, gave a talk called Lessons Learned from War, Assassination of the White House. Okay, this is where commas are important. Lessons learned from war, comma, assassination, comma, the White House, and I think there should be a comma there. They don't have one, and Hollywood. But so I bet that one was fascinating. Yeah. And also that year, Colin Powell gave a talk on From Battlefields to Playing Fields, Economics, Energy, and Education. Interesting. These all just sound really interesting. So
yeah. Wait, hold on. You start your day with a gin fizz, have whatever you want for brunch, and then you go go skeet shooting and then listen to these really cool lectures.
Yep.
No wonder people want to join.
Yep. After talks, there is lunch in the camps, and that's usually served by the camp stewards. Then after lunch, people go swimming or they visit each other's camps. Now, the club's motto is weaving spiders come not here. And that is typically thought to mean that club members should leave business behind and focus instead on other topics like art and literature. So they put on plays and dress up as women because that's what guys do. Because they're doing plays, so they don't have any women there, so they're doing, yeah. So 2 major plays are produced every year, the Hijinks, which is serious, and the Lowjinks, which is lowbrow. Productions are said to have cost over $100,000 to produce, and new plays are written every year by members. In 1989, Philip Weiss for Spy Magazine said that the Jinx jokes about women were straight out of an old joke book. My father said, if you have a choice between an angry woman and a rabid dog, take the dog. It's already got a fur coat and the license is a lot cheaper. Bump. They are currently hiring stagehands if for some reason you feel like witnessing this thing. Granted, that was from 1989 and hopefully their jokes have progressed since then. But I think that I've heard just that level of corniness is something that there's a lot of old men there. So yeah. There are also jam sessions as they make sure to have musicians as guests like Clint Black and Eric Church were on a recent leaked list. And as I said earlier, it is common to start drinking first thing in the morning. It is considered bad form to get blackout wasted, but you would have to be a little drunk because there are no radios, photographs, video cameras, tape recorders, cellular phones, telephones, television, pets, or firearms. And you can't play music from 1 a.m. to 9 a.m. The biggest ceremony is a cremation of care, and that happens the first night. And then that is when members put on red robes and they sacrifice an effigy to the owl. Now, the effigy is called dull care, and it symbolizes all the care on the shoulders of these great men because it's so heavy and they're so burdened, and so they just have to burn it away. And the 4-story tall owl, it's a 4-story tall owl. It talks, and the voice is pre-recorded. And for years, it was Walter Cronkite.
Of course it was.
It is made of concrete with a door in the back to hide audio equipment, but it's made to look like it's a natural rock formation. And sadly, it is called the Owl of Bohemia, not Moloch. After the effigy is set on fire with the lamp of fellowship, it is put into a boat and then has a little Viking funeral and sent across the lake. All their cares go. So now they're free to party at the Grove. All right. So in their camps, there are varying level of accommodations in about 120 separate camps with names like Derelicts, Five Easy Pieces, Poison Oak, Hillbillies, Highlanders. Nixon was a member of the Caveman Camp. Ronald Reagan was at the Owl's Nest. The Bushes called the Hillbillies Camp home, shockingly, as did Cronkite, William F. Buckley Jr., and Christopher Buckley. A typical camp at the Bohemian Grove has some sort of entryway that depicts like what they are. So for where the one group who's called Pig and Whistle, they have a ceramic group of suckling pigs. There is a place called Toyland, and they have a toy soldier figure in a glass case that's lit up. The most elite camp is Mandalay, and their members have included Kissinger and Gerald Ford. Mandalay employs 6 valets. It has a fairly small bar, but it says it has a beautiful deck and a camp clubhouse. The inside area is polished hardwood, and they have room for formal dinner seating for 50 to 75 men.
That's a lot of dining space. Do y'all realize how much space you need to have to dine that many people?
Yeah. In the woods, just in the woods. So they kind of group, like, for a while, they used to have the camps were based on kind of like what your industry were, but then I think it just ended up getting mixed up. So like the Hillbillies could have politicians, but also have big business or banking or universities or media. The Cavemen be like think tanks, oil companies, defense contractors, professors, media, things like that, right? So most of these clubhouses do have a building with a bar, a kitchen, and a small dining area where most of the members eat lunch. Some of them are just floors among the trees that you can put tents on, and others are basically luxury cabins up in the trees. Most camps do have it is fancy. Most camp they have like, and all these things are made not naturally, but because of where they are, there's always like staircases made of redwoods and things like all the like glass cabins and like things that are probably really badass because they're billionaires. So most of the camps have a signature drink. One of the most insane examples, which I hope they don't do anymore, is from the Four Peaks camps, and it was called the Nembutal Fizz, and that was a blend of hot rum and chocolate mixed with a barbiturate.
Whoa.
And they said there would be a guy in like a doctor's coat, like it says Dr. Nembutal, and they're walking around from the camp, like giving those out.
Wild.
Yeah. I'd be dead. All right. So campfires or fireplaces are highlights of the clubhouse area. And every evening, many camps have a piano for a spontaneous sing along and for campfire cheer. Oh God. I hate jam sessions. I hate jam sessions around pianos. All of this, like in the woods. Oh my God. The poor little forest animals.
I don't know. I feel like a piano jam session is better than other jam sessions, but that's my. They have a bit.
I left out the part about the big organ. There's like big, because I don't know if they're still there because it seems like an older thing. They have these giant pipe organs that they would have pipe organ concerts at every day. All right, so I put this just for you, operations. All right. According to an Old Mother Jones article, the nonprofit Bohemian Club reported losses of $600,000 in 2005 and $209,000 in 2006. But according to ProPublica, they had a revenue of $14,133,454 in 2024. They earned almost $4 million in initiation fees and contributions in 2024. If you want to have a job there and you're a man, you can be something called the Grove Keeper. They got a compensation of $309,948, and their GM gets paid $275,107. There is also the merchandising. You can buy owl belt. I did not know those would be a tongue twister. You can buy owl belt buckles, bolo ties, cufflinks, etc., all at the Grove gift shop. Although they said money can't be exchanged there, I guess that's the exception. Okay. Lawsuits. The Bohemian Club has faced a number of lawsuits, and shockingly, not only by women. And I'm not even going to go into all the women lawsuits because guess what? There were a lot for a place. I'll say bottom line is they're a private club, right? So they are a private club who have to abide by federal labor laws. Let's go with that. All right. So 2016, there was a wage theft lawsuit by the valets that did lead to a $7 million settlement. The valets' tasks were said to include serving cocktails to delivering newspapers, making coffee, scrubbing floors, moving beer kegs, and performing a variety of other labor-intensive work. The valets were on call on a 24-hour basis and expected to adhere to a strict dress code and instructed not to talk to certain guests. Working conditions were said to vary by camp. Then in 2023, another suit by valets won again, saying that they had to work 16-hour workdays without proper pay, and that was dismissed. But I did think it was interesting. They said that they had to work a burgundy brunch, and 4 valets worked nonstop for approximately 18 hours, providing a 2-course lunch and dinner to 90 guests. It also said the employees could only make phone calls before 9 a.m. and after 9 p.m., not to exceed 30 minutes a call. Employees were not allowed to accept tips and were prohibited from attending any rehearsals, plays, speeches, or any performances. But according to Sky Magazine, when Philip Weiss tipped the valet, he learned there were bars near the camp where sex workers were waiting, and the phrase jumping the river was code for going to get some. This is said to have decreased in popularity after law enforcement said this is a little too much and cracked down on it. So, bottom line, Bohemian Grove are a bunch of children being sacrificed by world leaders where they decide the fate of the world. No-ish?
Yeah, I think that there's some, probably some sketchy things going on in the club. I don't think that doesn't sound like they're killing kids.
No. The Jones is one of the ones that really kind of, even after he has, you can see in the footage that it's an effigy, and they're like, well, how do we know the effigy isn't really a child, and that it's very druidic and pagan, just, look, they're in robes. It's obviously it's pagan, it's satanic. So there's obviously, you could take things that way. However, just the idea that there is an elite club that I'm not allowed to join pisses me off, because I want I get annoyed when I'm not allowed to join things. Pisses me off. What are you hiding from me? Can't sit with us. Meh. I'm sure if you really dug into it, this is over 100 years of some of the world's richest men getting together for 2 weeks in the woods, all getting wasted without their wives. Nothing, and peeing. Did I talk about the peeing? Oh my God, I forgot. I don't know how I forgot to let this up. This is the biggest thing. Okay. What do they do when you put a bunch of men together in the woods? They fucking pee everywhere. They piss on everything. And it just becomes this whole part of the weekend is how many redwood trees people are peeing on. They've had cartoons depicting this. It's such a thing. And that's one of the reasons they said they don't want women there, because women get offended by how much they're pissing on everything. Y'all get all
their urinal. We understand.
You get all the money in the world. You get all like some of like the world's smartest minds together, and this is what you do with it. Anyways, so that's Bohemian Grove and Moloch. So in our supernatural Moloch, this Moloch is a god and kind of is like a god demon. And so they were basically locking him up and just hoping that first they were just starving him to death so that he would do things for them. Then we find out the sheriff is just kind of, is word I've learned in therapy is avoidance.
Oh, yeah, that's what he's doing. Yes, he's doing avoidance.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he has just locked his problem away and hoping it'll starve to death. And unfortunately, that is not how problems work.
No. Weird. So the sheriff thinks that Moloch is still locked in the basement of his house. Guess what's not in the basement anymore? Moloch's not there. He's not there, and there's a noise in the house upstairs. So Dean's brilliant idea is to leave Sam with our sheriff in the basement in the murder room, and he's going to be cool guy with the Colt and go look, see what's up. And he is super confident, but he's searching around, and we see Black Bill hanging out upstairs in the house, and it's Pete. Pete's there too. And Pete knocks him off of the stair railing. It looks very painful. Like knocks Dean off of this through like some plastic sheeting. Like this is how you like die. This is Bad News Bear's fault.
It's also kind of like when it comes down to it, you're still a middle-aged body. And this is how our bodies really get hurt. Probably not from the bullet wound, but from twisting your ankle as you fall through whatever that structure was.
It was like off the stair railing. Anyway, so while that's happening, Sam and Sam's like, oh shit, we better run upstairs. Something's happening. But Pete has locked the basement door, and the sheriff gives Sam a meat cleaver to cut through the door. Seems like this would take a very long time.
But apparently it's a very sharp meat cleaver because it works, and they break out, and Sam is now tracking Dean with his cell phone. And so now we're going to go to... oh God. Okay, so we're going to the bunker, where they're touching everything. There's touching everything, and everything is being photographed and examined. And I'm not sure what some of the stuff they're doing is.
No, it's real weird.
I think they're just like putting like little waveforms and stuff and pushing knobs because they're not actually doing things. And Ketch is snooping real hard, including Dean's skin rags, and then he judges that he has a drawer of black t-shirts, and I feel seen.
Yeah, and then he finds the photos. And there's Dean's favorite picture of him and Mary from when Dean was a little boy that we've seen before on the show. And it's there, and Ketch is just like gazing at it. He really likes this photo. And it's ick.
It's real gross. The look on his face is so gross. So back at the meat packing plant, Dean has found himself wrapped in plastic wrap, and he is wrapped to a chair.
Sorry, it's not funny, but it's funny.
It is funny.
And he greets Pete, and Pete's like, Pete was at the house looking for his brother because the sheriff is Pete's brother, we find out. Same, different mom, same daddy is what he says. Ew. And basically, apparently, old man Bishop had an eye for the ladies, and everybody knew, but Barry, our sheriff, grew up in the big house while Pete grew up in a double wide, and he is mad because life is not fair.
So unfair.
And Dean points out it sounds like a bad episode of Dynasty. He's like, well, you've got jokes, I've got a god. Because Pete had to get creative when our sheriff started selling things off. He was not playing the game for the family anymore. And Pete's like, fuck this. And he's like, so Moloch's going to make me rich and solve all of my problems as long as I feed him. So,
because that's what bishops do.
Mm-hmm.
Hunting people, killing them, the family business. Bum, bum, bum.
So well written. Gold star, writers. Gold star.
And they also do a pan to Dean's face there too, which was funny. There was a fourth wall broken moment.
And then we've got him sharing that Moloch's been starved for the last 20 years, so he's got to get his mojo back. But then Pete's got to save the town with Moloch's help by killing people. It's nonsense. Anyways. And so Dean points out, he's like, yeah, except for like, Jared and Darren. He's like, and of course, Pete's got a reason. Jared was a screw up and Darren talked. So what do you do? But either way, Sheriff was going to be next, but now Dean's next. So locking you in the meat freezer.
Yeah, and in the bunker, some putz tells Ketch that they have they have photographed and cataloged every inch, but there's no sign of the Colt. And this is where I get really annoyed. So Ketch says he could use a pint after putting a listening bug under the table. And so that's just one. So is that just his personal bug? What the fuck had they been doing for the past 17 hours that they were there?
I don't know. So
was that not bugs?
Very inefficient. I don't know. They were just searching. Who knows? It was weird.
Very weird. That at that point, I was just like, no. So
you don't even deserve this.
You don't. So.
So Dean is on the rolly chair in the meat locker, and he sees a body getting dragged away, probably Darren, maybe Jared, one of the two. And then he is able to break free of his saran wrap because that can't hold Dean Winchester. In the meantime, we know that our sheriff and Sam have arrived at the meatpacking plant, and we see that Pete, aka Black Bill, is waiting.
That mask has to smell like ass.
Yes, it has to smell terrible. Not only is it being worn that many times, but it's also by people hanging out in a meatpacking plant. Definitely judging. So Dean is hiding from Moloch in the freezer. And that's what's interesting here is that we've got we see a Black Bill outside the freezer. Then we see something in the freezer with Dean. And so that must be Moloch, but we don't really see him. It looks like he's in the costume. Anyway, so Dean attacks him and he misses him and hits a chunk of meat. And then on the outside of the meat locker, Black Bill is attacking Sam. Sheriff tackles him and they realize that it's Pete. Back in the meat locker,
and Dean's they unmask him very Scooby-Doo style too.
And he's like, what the fuck? We have like a little bit of a fight here, and Pete's like, I'm just going to save the town and be a hero. And Sam shoots him. And then while that's all going on, Dean is like trying to get the monster god fighting him in the meat locker, but gets his head bashed against the wall, and it looks so painful. Looks so very painful. But Sam is able to get the Colt, and shoot Moloch.
Yep, and Moloch dies.
And he melts into a puddle of blood. It's pretty gross. And I'm worried about the number of concussions that Dean Winchester has had just in this episode in this short period of time.
Yeah, the TBI for sure.
For sure. So the sheriff's sitting over dead Pete. There's just a puddle of blood in the meat locker with obviously some remains of Jared and Darren probably. Anyways, but the sheriff's like, y'all just leave. I'll take care of it. It's my legacy. Sad face. So they're like, wait, are you sure? And he's like, no, I got this. And they go back to the bunker and are discussing that, well, if we thought our family is messed up, we could be psychotic goat people, which is fair.
And it was Psycho Goat People, because that is my next band. That is my next band name, and that's what I texted you. If you watched the episode, I wanted to know if you'd heard about Psycho Goat People yet.
Psycho Goat People, got it. I feel like there's a lot of bad press. You're welcome.
So Dean starts pondering legacy and just how they will be remembered 100 years from now. And Sam kind of says, you know what? I don't think we're the kind of folks that will be remembered. We're not the type of people that are written about in history books. But the people that they say they'll remember, and that's going to be fine because they left the world a better place than they found it.
Yeah. And then they discuss they hope some hunters move into the bunker after them. And in Dean's way of leaving his mark, literally, he carves his initials into the table, just like they have in Baby, and then hands the knife to Sam to do the same. We get a flashback to the little kid, Sam and Dean, doing that.
And I also think this is interesting that it happens after they catalog the bunker.
Yeah. That is cool.
So, like, you think that they know everything about them, but you really don't because this is the things that you don't get, right? So,
and really, they don't have Baby either, and there's a lot of intel about them probably in Baby. There we go.
Fair. So, Dean says that they should call Mick to debrief or whatever, and Sam calls, and Ketch picks up the phone and tells him that Mick flew back to London to go answer for what happened with Dagon, and for the time,
and Rennie, our douchebag.
Yeah, for for what they did. And he was like, I would rather be with your mom hunting for chupacabra in Texas. And I want to be hunting for chupacabra in Texas. That sounds fun.
Yeah, but that would rather be with your mother is...
It's so gross. It's so gross.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so Dean's report is, well, we fought a god and we won. And Ketch is like, well done. Be in touch. And that's it. And then Dean calls Ketch a low-rent Christian Bale. Woof.
While Ketch is listening to everything. And he also, then like Dean starts talking shit about his BSA and he calls it the world's most unreliable bike. And then while he's doing that, Ketch is just eye-fucking that picture of Mary.
Which is so creepy.
So gross.
Creepy. Super creepy. Yeah.
All right. So we've got psycho goat people.
Well, yeah, we've got some cast. So first up is Pete, was played by Ryan McDonald. He was Brandon as a recurring character on Fringe. He was Bacchus in Magicians a few times. He was the letter sweater guy in Halloween Resurrection, Rodney in Ballad of Jack and Rose, a student in Exorcism of Emily Rose, and Scotty in the movie 2012. So our Sheriff Barrett Bishop Jr. was played by Steve Boyle. He's been in episodes of Queer as Folk, Nikita, Designated Survivor, Titans, and Handmaid's Tale, and Revival. My side note about him, just the second they showed him, and I knew it wasn't him, but he reminded me so much of Josh Segura, the actor that's been in a lot of stuff. Currently, he's on a couple of shows.
Yeah, he's in like 17. He's in 17 shows. I swear he's in 17 shows.
And I adore him. But anyways, at first glance, when they showed him with like the beard, I was like, no. And it wasn't, of course. No. But it was like, anyways. So that's my note. Aaron was played by Antonio Marzial, and he was Isaac in Altered Carbon as a reoccurring character, and was Elliot in a film called Alex Strangelove. Jared was played by Daniel Doheny, and he was Luke as a reoccurring character in the Day of the Dead series, and then Russell in Lucky Hank as a reoccurring character. He was Alex in Alex Strangelove, and he's done a bunch of voice work for like Ninjago and My Little Pony. Our Black Bill, the person in it, was played by Bill Nikolai, also in a lot of MacGyver and Stargate SG-1. And Moloch was played once again by someone we've seen before, John DeSantis. We've seen him as Gollum and Scarecrow. Oh, yeah. So yeah, this episode, as fucked up as it was, I liked the story, except for the weird bunker shit with Ketch and the Mary stuff.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good monster story of the week kind of thing. I really enjoyed it in that way.
Yeah. I mean, although like I hate the entitled Pete, that was just as a person.
Pete's a dick.
But yeah, so I'm glad Pete's dead, which,
Yeah. Like, not only are you an entitled shitbag, you're also a murdery entitled shitbag. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, that's, but yeah, no, I thought that was fun about it. The whole, I'm very intrigued to see what's happening with Catch, because you didn't really know how you felt about Catch. You knew you had questionable ethics going into the season when you first met him, but he's getting like worse and worse significantly by the episode.
Well, and not only by the episode. I mean, we saw from the last one where we still don't. The guys still don't know that Mick is dead.
Right.
We don't know if Mary is really hunting Chupacabra. And where the Chupacabra in Texas are. Why are they hiding this from me? I know they're in San Antonio. I know they're here. But it's
rude.
So rude. But, so there is that. And then plus we do have the other side story of Lucifer's baby that's, still happening.
And Cass is still like MIA.
We don't know where Cass is either.
We know he went upstairs. We think he went upstairs, right? That's where we left off with them last.
That's where we left off. He was in heaven. That was the last place he went up to heaven. So that was the last place we saw him. But so this doesn't really answer that, but this was episode 18, so we're getting near to the end of the season. Cool. Yeah, I think is, as you would say, it pushes things along.
There we go. So close.
All right. So I think on that note, we'll wrap it up. And cheers, Jerk.
Cheers, bitch.